welcome. I'm Shivani Singh. History is often written by the victors, but the tragedies are lived by the vanquished. In 1979, one of the most powerful dynasties of the 20th century vanished overnight. The Pahlavi Dynasty, the architects of a modern, secular and oil-rich Iran, didn't just lose a kingdom, they lost their soul. What followed the 1979 revolution wasn't a change in regime. It was a slow-motion collapse of a family. From the glittering halls of Tehran to the lonely hotel rooms in London and Boston, the Pahlavis have been haunted by a series of tragic deaths that many call the curse of the peacock throne. We explain how one of the world's wealthiest families became a symbol of displacement and despair. Let's start with the fall. On January 16, 1979, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi boarded his own Boeing 707 and flew out of Iran. He reportedly carried a box of Iranian soil. He was never to return. The family became international nomads. They were rebuffed by the UK, moved to the Moroccos, the Bahamas, Mexico, and finally the United States. A visit that triggered the infamous 444-day Iran hostage crisis. But the tragedy began in early. In 1980, just 17 months after leaving his throne, the Shah died in Cairo. It wasn't a political assassination. It was lymphoma, a cancer that he had secretly battled for years. He died a guest of President Anwar Sadat, buried far from the land he ruled with an iron fist. The Shah's death was the first crack, but the real tragedy was inherited by his children, the ones who grew up as royals and woke up as pariahs. In June 2001, the world was shocked by the death of Princess Leila Pahlavi. She was only 31. Leila was the quintessential exiled princess, a model for Valentino, a socialite in Paris and London, but behind the glamour was a woman struggling with severe anorexia, bulimia, and chronic depression. She was found dead in the Leonard Hotel in London. And the cause? A massive overdose of barbiturates. Her family said that she could never get over the loss of her father or the pain of seeing her homeland ruined by theocracy. She died alone, in a rented room, surrounded by the ghosts of a kingdom she barely remembered. If Leila's death was a shock, what happened 10 years later was a verdict. Prince Alireza Pahlavi, the Shah's youngest son, was a scholar. He studied at Princeton, Columbia, and Harvard. He had the money, he had the education, and the name. Yet in January 2011, at the age of 44, he took his own life with a gunshot in his Boston home. His brother Reza Pahlavi issued a statement that was haunting. He said, and I quote here, he was deeply disturbed by all the ills fallen upon him on his beloved homeland. Think about that. Ali Reza was 12 when he left Iran. He spent nearly 30 years in the West, but the dislocation was terminal. For Ali Reza, the burden of the Pahlavi name and the trauma of exile proved to be more than his brilliance could handle. Why did this family, with all of its wealth, suffer such a Shakespearean end? Historians argue that it was a crisis of identity. They were too Iranian for the West and too westernized for the new Iran. They lived in a gilded cage of memory. There was also the burden of history. The Pahlavi children were blamed for their father's authoritarianism and the Savak's brutality, even though they were minors. Then there was also a loss of purpose. In exile, they were relics. They weren't royals, but they couldn't just be commoners. And then there was collective trauma. The suicides of Leila and Ali Reza highlight the profound mental health toll of political displacement. Today, the Pahlavi legacy is a complicated one. Some in Iran's diaspora look back at the era with nostalgia. Others remember the repression. But beyond the politics is the human tragedy. The Pahlavi story is a reminder that you can lose a throne and survive, but losing a home, that is a wound that sometimes never heals. From the throne to the tragedy, the Pahlavis remain a warning of how quickly the world can turn on those who think they are untouchable. Thanks for watching.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.